In the world of anime, few groups embody pure devastation like the Chimera Ant Royal Guard from Hunter x Hunter and the Disaster Curses from Jujutsu Kaisen. These entities are not just antagonists, they are apex predators, designed to overwhelm, outwit, and obliterate anyone standing in their way. But what happens when these forces collide in an all-out battle of supremacy? On one side, the Royal Guard, Poof, Pito, and Yuppie, stand as the perfect creations of the Chimera Ant King Meruem. Each member wields terrifying abilities and unmatched physical prowess, embodying evolution's pinnacle in their relentless pursuit to protect their king. Calculating, loyal, and utterly ruthless, they are predators who view humans as mere insects beneath their feet. On the other hand, the Disaster Curses, Mahito, Dagon, Hanami, and Jogo, represent the dark embodiment of humanity's fears and hatred. Fueled by cursed energy, they revel in chaos, each wielding uniquely destructive techniques that target the very essence of their enemies. Their goal is to bring the world under the dominion of curses, turning the natural order into a twisted reflection of their monstrous ideals. In terms of speed, Hunter x Hunter is significantly faster than Jujutsu Kaisen. Mahito and Jogo are much slower than the Naoya Maki fought in the Culling Games. Maki manages to react to a Mach 3 Naoya. This could be attributed to either precognition and timing, suggesting she isn't inherently that fast, or as some argue highballing her speed beyond that level. Regardless, the two strongest characters on the Disaster Curses side aren't even as fast as him. In Hunter x Hunter, we have characters like Kurapika and Uvogin casually catching bullets, which demonstrates reactions 2 to 3 times faster than Naoya's speed. You later see the Phantom Troop go up against a platoon of Chimera Ants led by an ant named Zazan. Zazan moves so quickly that members of the troop couldn't even perceive her movements, forcing them to rely on multiple ultimate abilities just to take her down. These are characters who, while strong, aren't anywhere near the peak of the verse, teaming up and going all out against someone much weaker and slower than a Royal Guard. When you reach someone like Pito, the speed in combat escalates dramatically. Pito blitzing Kite early on is, at minimum, 12 to 15 times faster than bullet reactions. At this point in the story, a character like Pito could literally blitz the entire Phantom Troop and probably reduce them to mist. While Jujutsu Kaisen ramps up quickly after this tier with characters like Sukuna, Gojo, and Maharaga, the Disaster Curses in terms of speed simply aren't even close. Durability and attacking is a little more tricky because of the JJK verse abilities, but I'll be going over those in a minute. As for the Chimera Ants, the fight will primarily rest on the shoulders of Pito and Yuppie. I'm not completely ruling out Poof, but his abilities are more utilitarian, making it harder to account for his contributions in direct combat. Pito is the strongest ant after Meruem and is an absolute monster. I've already covered why speed is essentially a non-issue, but in terms of abilities, Pito wields Terpsichore, which allows them to puppet themselves and their opponents like marionettes. They can also heal, though their healing ability is less impressive than that of some other characters in the series. Regardless, Pito is comparable to Yuppie in terms of destructive capability, with a few exceptions related to specific abilities. Yuppie is likely going to be the most difficult opponent for the Disaster Curses to handle. His insane durability and massive aura are geared entirely towards combat, unlike the more calculated approaches of Pito and Poof. While he is somewhat slower than Pito and Poof as well, the relatively low speed of his opponents makes this a non-issue. Yuppie's strongest attack, as seen in the manga, is his Rage Blast. This attack annihilated a large, probably town-sized area with an estimated force exceeding 450 kilotons of TNT. This is more insane than you think because it actually vaporizes what is in the vicinity of the attack. Beyond raw power, Yuppie also demonstrates the incredible adaptability of the Chimera Ants, transforming his cells into liquid, gaining the ability to fly, and drastically altering his appearance during battle. Poof, while not as overwhelmingly powerful, has an array of versatile abilities. He can utilize his cocoon in numerous ways, including healing and protecting his core, as well as transforming normal people into Chimera Ants. His ultimate ability, Beelzebub, uses hypnotic skulls and clones. However, Beelzebub comes with drawbacks such as the clones becoming less coherent as they decrease in size. Even so, it's an ability the Disaster Curses may have no real counter for, largely due to the speed disparity. While Poof's hypnosis likely wouldn't outright win this fight, dismissing his potential influence, including his mind-reading abilities, would be foolish. A Poof clone is seen nearly hitting a likely above light speed Killua, demonstrating that Poof is more physically competent than many assume. At worst, Poof serves as an invaluable support unit, providing god-tier assistance and gathering critical information. In terms of raw stats, the Royal Guard is overwhelmingly ahead. Even at a low ball, they are hundreds of times faster, as evidenced by the interactions between Netero and Pito. This isn't just cinematic timing or guesswork, just a straightforward fact of the matter. Towards the latter stages of the Chimera Ant arc, fights are concluded in fractions of a second. The arguments in favor of the disaster curses are more complicated and frankly don't hold up. The two main points hinge on taking a speculative conversation between Kenjaku and Mahito hyperliterally. The phrase in question is, the body is the soul and the soul is the body. The first argument derived from this is that curses scale to the power of their domain expansions. The idea is that a domain is directly tied to the soul of its user, implying that their power reflects the domain scale and capabilities. However, most people reject this interpretation because the implications are absolutely absurd. In Dagon's case alone, it would suggest he created a star within his domain. For someone like Mahito, the conclusions become even more ridiculous. The second argument is the armchair reasoning people use to avoid engaging with the matchup entirely. They claim Mahito is literally immortal and would simply insta-kill any one of the Chimera Ants, including Posteros Meruem, with the domain expansion. The highest level of this argument asserts that because the disaster curses consciously existed without physical bodies at a point, referencing Kenjaku's conversation once again, Mahito could reshape himself even if his body were completely destroyed. Proponents point to Toji returning to his body, despite being reduced to pure body manipulation, as supporting evidence. Another aspect of this argument involves Mahito's statement that, unless his soul is damaged, he's effectively immortal. Advocates cite his fight with Mechamaru, emphasizing Mechamaru's soul-damaging attacks were needed to harm him, as opposed to straightforward physical damage. While a case can be made for this, it's ultimately unsatisfying. First, I take issue with interpreting the Kenjaku conversation hyperliterally in the first place, but even if we accept the argument entirely, it requires a lot of guesswork to justify Mahito as an automatic win factor. Mahito's best actual showcase is exploding himself into a blood mist and reshaping his body. However, this process is conscious, he has to actively reshape himself. The first question that comes up essentially ends the argument. Can he survive total bodily erasure? I would argue no, though there's a case to be made for him possibly being able to do so. The second question is, how much can he reshape himself before running out of cursed energy? While this might seem like a point in his favor, since we don't know how long he could sustain it, Mahito would eventually deplete his energy reserves. Even considering his ability to use domain expansion while being attacked, it's not a guarantee. At this point, many still view Mahito as an auto-win factor due to his domain expansion. However, the opposition is massively stronger and faster. The idea that the three of them would just stand there with no contingency plan, unable to counter him in any way, is pretty absurd. While Mahito, especially when paired with another member of the Disaster Curses, is a significant threat, any of the three Royal Guards will be able to counter him in some way. Even Poof, for instance, could just stall him by staying miles away in the sky, avoiding any potential hits. The strongest threat among the Disaster Curses is likely Jogo. The closest comparison to the Chimera Ant's power is Jogo's meteor attack from the anime. The highest end scaling of that attack could pose some challenges, though its legitimacy is pretty questionable. That said, Jogo, Dagon, and Hanami are unlikely to defeat Yuppie even with domain expansions. Yuppie is simply a bad matchup for each of them in terms of both resistance and abilities. As for Nin versus Cursed Energy, it seems like it would mostly benefit the Hunter x Hunter side. With the way In works, it can detect any changes whatsoever in its range. The Chimera Ants should be able to see the Disaster Curses outright, but if not, In would still detect them. Nin Crush is also a factor in Hunter x Hunter, similar to Bleach. While I don't think any of the Chimera Ants would outright Nin Crush the Disaster Curses to death, there's a real chance they could be paralyzed in fear from simply feeling their aura. If you equalize Nin and Cursed Energy in any hypothetical scenario, it's probably going to benefit the Chimera Ants. The evolution that people attribute to Mahito is something all Chimera Ants inherently have. That aside, I genuinely don't see how the Disaster Curses win against the Royal Guard, let alone Meruem in most cases. Against higher tier Jujutsu Kaisen characters, it becomes much more interesting. Characters like Gojo, Takaba, and Sukuna are incredibly powerful and can pose a legitimate threat to Netero, Posteros Meruem, and so on. I don't think this is a spite matchup because you can definitely come up with hypothetical scenarios where the Disaster Curses at least land a definitive kill. Part of the fun in versus battles is coming up with those situations anyway. Like I said, there's even a line of argumentation, though most reasonable people don't agree with it, that can make the Disaster Curses seem much more impressive. Initially, I thought the Disaster Curses would win, but I honestly forgot how ridiculous some of the Chimera Ant feats are. Narratively, the Royal Guard are treated as godlike beings, with only Netero being relative to one of them. Anyway, this was a requested topic, so I wanted to cover it. If you disagree, let me know, and if you can cite the exact thing you're referencing, like an anime timestamp or manga page, I'll check it out. Be sure to leave a comment with your thoughts or corrections if I got something wrong. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.